is the N64 Classic Edition. Now, it's been over a year or so since I actually did talk about the N64 Classic. I actually talked about my thoughts, like what would come with it, or like what we would see, or what would happen with the console itself when it came to us. But now it's already been 2 years since it's been 2017. September 29th, it's going to be actually 2 years since the Super Nintendo Classic came out. I'm pretty sure it was September 29th of 2017. I'm not so sure. And now, since that we're like halfway through September, that means we're almost there to the freaking holidays. And that means it's almost going to be the year 2020. So that means it's going to be 3 years since it was 2017. And then when that September comes, it's going to be 3 years since the Super Nintendo Classic came out. So originally everyone thought that the N64 Classic was going to come in the year 2018. But my theory was that I'm pretty sure I said it in the last video for the N64. I'll put a link in the description down below if you guys want to see that video as well. But I think I said in that video that it probably might take Nintendo at least a year or two to actually release the system itself. Probably because there's a lot more work to go with it, because it's like 64 bits and the console was like being able to play with 4 players and everything else. But so far, we haven't heard any no's or yes from Nintendo. There hasn't been any news from Nintendo that they are not going to be making the console, or they are making the console. They are still leaving all of us into a cliffhanger. So I figured that this would be a good time to actually mention about this, and I can actually give out my opinions about where is it? Where is it? What is probably what Nintendo's hitting their bat out of the park or something like that? Like, where is it? Where is this console that we are all waiting for that it's not coming out yet? The first one I'm actually going to be talking about is 64 bits. When the NES Classic Edition came out, that console was 8 bits. It had like 8 bits with the game, so you can fit like a lot more games onto it. So even like the Super Nintendo is 16 bits. The N64, 64 bits. And the N64, God who knows when or how many games will be on that system, because Nintendo's probably going through a lot of work, because there was so many big games, so many big titles, and then also maybe copyright issues or something, I don't know. But there were, like I said, so many big titles that they are probably snowballing with, that it is probably really hard for them to actually make this list and actually figure out what is going to be on the system. That is my take on it. And also 64 bits, it means like they are probably having a lot of more time. They're probably taking a lot more efforts to actually make a unit or make this program or something to where they can emulate all the games they want onto it, and making sure that they all work, because that's probably what is probably going on in their minds. They're probably trying to figure out like some way to emulate them all together all at once, and then probably maybe making a unit, maybe like a console or something, like a little mini console, and trying to do a test run to make sure that everything works, controllers and all that. So that's probably where that's probably where they're going with on this. That is probably taking them a lot of work. With copyright issues, I don't think Nintendo's going to have any problems with copyright issues. Take a look at some of the other games that Nintendo has listed onto these other consoles. They had Konami, Namco, Capcom, and all those other ones. So Nintendo does not have any copyright issue problems. That was where I was actually thinking about. At first, I was going to say that Nintendo has copyright issue problems because there's so many. But they don't have any copyright issues because they have released other company games onto these systems. So, and also another thing though too that I actually do really want to mention about the N64 Classic is that it's going to be really different though than the other two. The NES came with 30 games. The Super Nintendo Classic Edition came out with 20 games, plus with the secret never release Star Fox 2, so that means 21 games. So what's the difference between the two? This one's 8 bits, this one is 16 bits. There's a little bit more bits than this one. So that means that there was a little bit less games, so that means there was 9 less games on the Super Nintendo than there was on the NES Classic. I mean, all I'm saying is that there probably maybe a few more less games on the N64 Classic than most people are hoping. Who knows, maybe Nintendo will find some way to where they can add a ton of games on there, maybe even 40 games or something, I don't know, but it's just like they're all more bigger games than the Super Nintendo and the NES. These ones had like more adventures, more big open worlds or something like that. So that's why I think that it's probably going to take Nintendo a lot more time, a lot more effort to do. And also they have to go through a lot of work to actually do that. And also my second reason why I think Nintendo is probably taking a little bit more time to actually thinking about doing this, if they want to do a whole entire another console release and another whole classic edition release or something like that. But another reason why I think they're probably taking a little bit more time into thinking about this time, probably thinking about, let's do whatever Sega did. Now, just to let you guys know, the Sega Genesis Mini is going to be coming out next week. But they also did release a game called the Sega Genesis Classics, which has over 50 games on it. So this is probably another reason, though, to what Nintendo's actually thinking about doing. Nintendo's probably thinking that they probably might release it onto the Nintendo Switch, because since that the Switch has been the world's hot-selling item, they've been doing a lot of games, they've been having a lot of good hot sales on their games right now for the Nintendo Switch. So that's what they're probably thinking about that too. And also the Switch probably has a lot more memory space, a lot more power than the NES and the Super Nintendo Classics, and probably than the N64 Classic Edition probably. So on the N64 Classic, if they came out with an actual console, like I said, about fewer games, on the Nintendo Switch, they could probably do what Sega did and probably release maybe over 50 games. Maybe even close to 50, who knows. And probably also like Super Smash Bros. How with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, how they actually have a little adapter that goes with the Super Smash Bros. Game, to where you can use the adapter and you can plug in your GameCube games. Nintendo's probably thinking that they could probably release their N64 Classic Edition onto a cartridge and just put it, and you can just play it on your Switch, and then you can also get an adapter and you can buy N64 controllers as well. That's probably maybe a theory that they're probably going with. Also, virtual consoles. Just recently, we just had the Super Nintendo games being released onto the Nintendo Switch. Yes, it's because of the Nintendo Online deal, or the Nintendo Online membership. When you apply, or when you do the whole entire Nintendo Online thing, you can actually be able to play NES games onto your Nintendo Switch. And also now they just added to their Nintendo Online the Super Nintendo games. So now it's the exact same thing like the NES, where you can play your Super Nintendo games on there. So Nintendo is probably thinking that maybe they might do that with the N64 Classic. Who knows? Why I'm saying that is because the exact same thing as them putting onto a cartridge. Now, the Nintendo Switch has more power than an actual console, and probably has a lot more power than an actual little cartridge does. So probably what Nintendo is probably thinking about is that maybe they'll probably just release it onto the Nintendo Online, and where you can actually just play your games on that. And also, like I said, they probably might have it to where they'll probably sell adapters for it, or also like the NES for the Nintendo Online people for memberships. They'll probably release actual special wireless controllers or something for N64 games, because they probably might have to. I don't know, but or you just play them with your regular Switch, like Pro controllers or something like that. I don't know, but they'll probably do it to where you can have like special controllers, like N64 controllers or something. I don't know. But I think that's probably where they're going with that as well, with game-wise. So now I know what everyone's going to be saying right now. Everyone's going to be thinking about or saying like, Ryan, all you're just talking about is just the games and everything. Well, see, that's the thing. There's nothing going to be wrong with the controllers or the actual system itself if Nintendo does make an actual physical Classic Edition console for it. Because controllers are easy to work with, because it's just like wires or buttons and all that stuff to just simply figure out. If it doesn't work, then they can just figure out some easy solution to actually making the controller work. And the console itself, if it's going to be an N64 Mini, is that it's not going to be it is going to be a working console, but it's not an actual working console where you put cartridges in and everything. The little N64 Mini is just going to be just the shell with a little chip that's going to be inside that actually programs the emulated games and just everything else that works on it. So that's why I'm just saying that it's mostly just because of the game stuff and everything else. So it's just like Nintendo's probably working on that to making sure if the console works and everything else. But then if some bad situation happens or whatever to where they can't release the actual physical mini console, then that they have the Nintendo Switch as a cartridge, or with their Nintendo Online as a backup plan. But hopefully that they do figure out some way how to release it as a little mini console. Now, I think it was mostly just because it was a rumor that happened by somebody. Now, I just don't know if Nintendo actually linked or actually hinted that there was going to be an N64 Classic. I just remember just hearing like hundreds of people on YouTube just making videos about it, and then like my friends from my personal job heard about it, and then we just started talking about it. That was when I started making my first video about the N64 Classic, like what if it does happen and everything. And then now to this point, because I think it might have been just a rumor that someone did start. But I'm not too sure. I don't really research a lot or too much about on Google or anything. That I just kind of like go with my own opinions, with my own thoughts. So if it does happen, that'll be awesome. But if not, then that's all right, I guess. But we're all just hoping that it will happen. Now, the one thing before I go, a lot of people have been actually mentioning this to me. Some people have been talking about this, is Nintendo going to figure out some way how they're going to stop us from hacking our N64 Classic Editions? And my fast and simple answer is no. They're not gonna think about any ways to stop us modding are adding more games onto our N64 Classic Edition. Now, the only reason why I say that is because that was a rumor from when the Super Nintendo Classic Edition came out. And hell, it was even a rumor when the re-release of the NES Classic Edition came out, was that Nintendo found some way to where we wouldn't be able to add more games onto our Super Nintendo or add more games onto the re-release of the N64 Classic. But Nintendo did not do anything different or anything like that with the other consoles. They were all the same, and people still figure out ways how to add more games on those. So I don't think Nintendo will do anything about that, and that should not really be our worries right now. The only thing that should be our worries right now is that hopefully that maybe the N64 Classic Edition will happen and it will be a thing. But if it does, but then when it comes to the point to where we can add more games, we probably may not be able to add as many games as we can with the NES and Super Nintendo, because like I said, with the big games and everything, since it will probably take a lot of memory or something like that. I don't know. I'm not too sure. But anyways, you guys, I'll see you guys later. I know that this was a pretty short video, but let me know what you guys think about your guys' opinions, if there is or maybe another reason why maybe Nintendo probably may not make this console or something. But anyways, you guys, I'll see you guys later. Have a good weekend. Peace.